It's time to stop and smell the bloody breath and look at the white roses. It's the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1, and this is a review for you. So the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 stars Jennifer Lawrence, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Woody Harrelson, Donald Sutherland, Julianne Moore, Liam Hemsworth, and a whole bunch of other people that I really can't remember right now. But there's a lot of people in this movie, a lot of stars. And of course it follows the continuing story of Katniss Everdeen, the girl on fire, and her struggles and rebellions against the evil capital. What I really liked about this movie is that this is exactly why I really enjoyed the books. Now, I didn't know anything about the Hunger Games franchise until I started seeing trailers for the first movie and everyone started going nuts. I had no idea what the hell this movie was. I just really dismissed it as another Twilight sort of type of knockoff teen tween book thing. But it's really not. There's really a whole lot of really cool political subtext and about oppression and rising up against a really corrupt and a government that's got its hand jammed over the top of you, dystopian political stuff. And what I really liked about the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1 is that it really emphasized that aspect of the books. It's not just about the Hunger Games. There's some really interesting dystopian government political subtext that I thought was really cool for a book that's geared more towards young readers, introduces young readers to a subject like this, but does it in a real quick and entertaining way. I have a feeling that this movie is going to be very divisive amongst people because if you're not a fan of the books or haven't read the books or don't know anything about the books and don't know where this series ultimately is going, especially if you went to the Hunger Games and really dug the Hunger Games portion of these films, you might be a little bit put off. The movie is called The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. So if you're going into this movie looking for the Hunger Games, yeah, you're gonna kind of be disappointed because there is no Hunger Games in this movie. The Hunger Games are gone. That's what I really liked about these books. It's set up with the Hunger Games in the first book, and then the second book is just kind of a rehash of the first book, but kind of done a little bit better. And then it leads into this whole rebellion aspect of it, which is really what these books are about. It's really what these stories are about. So if you're going into this movie looking for the Hunger Games, you're probably going to be disappointed. There's a lot of talking in this movie. It is a very slow-moving movie, but it's a very compelling movie. There's a lot of really cool political stuff going on in this movie. There's chess games and intrigue and cat and mouse games between Donald Sutherland's President Snow and Jennifer Lawrence's Katniss Everdeen. It's a movie about making commercials. It's basically what this movie's about. The Capitol's got their propaganda films. The rest of the rebellion, who's kind of hanging out or the start of the rebellion, I should say, is kind of hanging out in District 13. They're like the force of the rebellion. They're looking for this spark to get all the other districts on board with trying to rise up against the Capitol and stop the Hunger Games and be happy. But seriously, this movie has a lot of back and forth between the Capitol and the people in District 13, and Katniss being the face of, the reluctant face. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't want to be the face of this rebellion. Because she's afraid of what may or may not happen to Peeta. She doesn't want any of this stuff, but is kind of forced and thrust into the situation. This movie hinges on the performances. Everybody in this movie is really good. Jennifer Lawrence is really good. There is one scene in particular in this movie that really had me. I was like, okay, I'm on board with this. Like, she's really good at playing this character. She's just a really good actress altogether. Philip Seymour Hoffman is really good as well. It's sad to know that this could be his, or this will be his final sort of piece. I'm still confused on if he will show up in the second Mockingjay Part 2 or not, but he's really good in this movie as well. Woody Harrelson shows up and he's doing his his Haymitch thing. I really liked what they did with Elizabeth Banks and Effie Trinket here. Effie Trinket in the books is just kind of this write-off character, sort of like she's got a little bit of an arc in the books, but they really took that arc with the movies and ran with it. And what they did with our character here, I thought, was spot on. Elizabeth Banks is really good at that character. Donald Sutherland is just really good as President Snow. He's really creepy. He's got a real good presence about him. The kind of throwaway character here is Liam Hemsworth. I didn't really like him in the movies up to this point anyway. You know, he's just kind of there. There is a really cool scene that involves him later on, towards the end of the film. I could have done without him. Whatever. Julianne Moore shows up as President Alma Coyne, who's a really good character from the book. She does a really good job here as well. It is a very ballsy move by Lionsgate to do something like this, because this movie doesn't have a whole lot of action. Like I said before, if you're coming into this movie looking for the Hunger Games and you know, looking for another arena and Katniss shooting arrows and explosions and stuff like that, that's not what this film is about. This film is setting up the battle between the rebels and the Capitol, and it really takes a stand with its political message, with its dystopian sort of angst that the Capitol has put on the rest of the districts because of what Katniss, the consequences from what Katniss did, starting way back in the first Hunger Games. So. It is very talky. It is a very talky movie, but I think it kind of works. It does work. It's really like I said, it hinges on the performances of the actors, and they really make this movie entertaining, probably more so than it should be. I'm not a fan of the last book. I think the last book in the Hunger Games series is really kind of it almost felt rushed, and the ending I thought was really tacked on, and you know, I just didn't like where the end of the book went, and the book overall kind of slods through itself to try to get to that ending, and I thought the movie did a really good job of making what is essentially a movie about making commercials really kind of interesting and entertaining. I enjoyed it a great deal. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Like it was solid, especially for something that, you know, most people would say is geared towards younger people. I thought it did a really good job at portraying its message while still trying to be entertaining, with not a whole lot of action. There is action in the movie, but it's nothing like what you saw before from the last two films, and I really kind of dug that. This is a very different Hunger Games movie that we've seen so far, and I think one of the better ones. I was a fan of the first film. I know some people had issue with Gary Ross's camera style and stuff like that. Catching Fire, I thought, was a really well done film. It kind of improved on all the mistakes and stuff like that I kind of had with the first Hunger Games film. It did it better in the second movie. This one is probably my second favorite Hunger Games film so far. I thought they did it's just a really solid film. Like it's good. It's a good movie. It really is. It's solid. Some people probably can have issues with the pace and how talky it is, but overall it is a very solid film, and it's part one, you know. So I mean, if you don't know that it's kind of setting up the next movie, then you know, maybe you shouldn't go see the Mockingjay Part 1. But it does a really good job of setting up the last stand between the Capitol and these rebels. Overall, a very good film. Very solid performances. Really cool back and forth politically between President Snow and the rebels. I really found the whole propaganda thing very interesting, and you know, the PETA storyline I thought was interesting. I was never a fan of the PETA character, but I thought they did a really good job of portraying that in the film. I did have a problem with there's kind of like a false ending in here. You know, I kind of read that, you know, the movie just does kind of end, but there was a part in the movie that I thought it should have ended there, and it just kind of kept going, and it kind of tacked on something else at the end. You'll know it when you see it. There was a part where the movie should have ended, and it just kind of didn't. I mean, if you really want to leave it on a cliffhanger, that one part would have been a really nice place to leave it on a cliffhanger. But overall, I thought it was a very solid film. It does kind of slow down. I mean, like I said, it is very talky, but it's interesting. It moves. Everything is interesting in this film. It doesn't. Nothing really kind of plods along. There are one or two moments of clunky dialogue, and I thought in the last act of the film, right after something happens with explosions, the plot kind of slows down a little bit until it gets to its finale. I think I'm going to give The Hunger Games a B. It's a solid entry in the Hunger Games franchise, and it really sets up the finale well. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I don't want to give too much away about this film because there is a lot that's really cool to explore in this, and I think that if people give it a chance, they might actually find it really entertaining, especially given that it is very different from the other two Hunger Games films. So I don't really want to go into too many spoilers, but a very solid film, very interesting film too, especially for a bunch of subject matter that is technically geared more towards younger people. But overall, like I said, I'm going to give The Hunger Games a B. But that's it for The Hunger Games, and that's it for this episode of a review for you, and I will talk to you guys later. Dustin Hoffman. Yeah, no, not in this movie. Okay.